What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality podcast. I'm your host. I'm Caitlin Kenna Smith, and today we're going to talk all about mistakes that I've made. I love talking about my mistakes. You know why? Because all of these mistakes have made me better. And the goal with this podcast is to help you become better through my experiences and the experiences of others. So if I can't admit my mistakes and share them with you, then how the hell are you going to be able to navigate your mistakes? Because you might be making these mistakes. And even if you're not an athlete, I want you to think of this in all areas of your life, because you can be making these same mistakes in any area of your life. You just apply it. That's the cool part about fitness and training and athleticism, is that a lot of the lessons that I've learned and a lot of the mistakes that I've made can translate over to real life. And I don't know why I say real life in that sense, because the reality is this is all real life. We're not in a video game. We don't get to respawn if we die. That's scary. So these are mistakes that made me. These are 8 things that I would never do again as an athlete. What I got wrong, lessons from a formerly burnt out athlete. Hi, that's me. And if I could start over again as an athlete, I'd do these 8 things differently. I was overtrained, underfueled, mentally fried, and I was still convinced that I just wasn't doing enough. And these are the 8 mistakes that nearly broke me, and what I do now instead. Now, I do need to add a caveat to this. A lot of these 8 things I am still working on. I am not perfect. I am not through the thick of it yet, but I'm to the point where I have self-awareness of all of these things, and I understand that if I did do these differently earlier in my career, then I would be further along than I am now. So I want to preach them to you as a way for you, if you're chasing something in an athletic field, that you can tweak these things and you can go further. Because all of these 8 things have held me back for longer than I'd care to admit. They're in no particular order, but we're going to start with number 1, and this one is number 1 for a reason. Underfueling for way too long. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, then you know that I come from an eating disorder background. I am currently 30. I'm like 30 and a half. I'm like 30 and 7 months. I'm like almost 31. That's disturbing. And my husband reminds me every single day. Anyway, I'm 30, almost 31, and I struggled with an eating disorder since the age of 14, and I still struggle with eating disorders in some way, shape, or form. And I'll be the first to admit right now I'm kind of going through a bout, and I've had this conversation with my nutrition coach where I'm going through a bout of orthorexia, where I'm obsessed with clean eating and I struggle to eat out and I struggle to change my foods and I struggle to do anything differently when it comes to my food. I'm very OCD right now with my food. So we're trying to change things up and let me know that it's okay to fuel more, because I need to fuel more if I want to train harder, perform better, get stronger, compete with the girls that I want to compete with, and not be injury prone. But I underfueled for a very, very long time. Very, very long time, to the point where it did damage on my body. And even after I was quote unquote recovered from my eating disorder, and I'll use the word recovered as I was to a more stable, healthier weight, because the reality is with any of these disorders or any addiction, I truly believe that you never truly recover from those disorders. You just become better at challenging those thoughts as they come. For example, I do have thoughts daily about restricting. However, I cannot even tell you the last time I have purposefully restricted. I can tell you the last time that I thought about it earlier today. I can tell you the last time that maybe I didn't want to eat something, but I did. The difference is that I don't let those thoughts control my actions. And that's how you change. You grow, you become stronger, and you realize that you have power and control over those thoughts. So back when I was 14 is when I really first developed an eating disorder. And it really started with me trying to gain control over my life when I felt like I was losing control. We just moved out of New York, where I grew up, into North Carolina, and I was completely lost and confused, and I didn't have any friends. And I thought, oh, well, if I can change myself, this is like a fresh start, right? So what I did is I was like, oh, let me try and lose weight, because I was a little bit chunky. So if I can lose weight, people will like me better. And then I kind of got obsessed with exercise, obsessed with eating less. It was about quality of food, but it wasn't at the same time. It was more just like, I'm eating healthy, but I'm just eating like no carbs, and I'm eating like no fat, which over time it took a toll on my body, to the point where when I was 21, like I said, I was struggling back and forth with this over the years. And there were times where I was okay. Actually, like 15 to 16, I started getting a little bit better, because I started just eating and listening to my body and fueling my body as a cross-country athlete. And I felt probably the best I've ever felt when it came to sport. But I was also eating a lot of crap back then, so I wouldn't recommend it. However, I was probably fueling my body enough. Probably not enough protein. I can definitely say that. But I was definitely eating enough carbs, can confirm. But as the years went on, it started getting worse and worse, to the point where I was just doing it because I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I was very aware of that. I just didn't want to. I felt like I was a burden. I felt like I didn't matter. I felt like I wasn't enough. And I felt like it would just be easier if I kind of just disappeared. Nobody cared anyway, right? So it got to the point when I was 21, I was 89 pounds at 5'6". Now that was like the tip top of my underfueling journey. And a lot of people may assume that like at that point, I probably wasn't working out at all. I was working out a lot. I was doing like 3 to 4 hours of insanity workouts and P90X workouts. And then I started, once I started getting like more comfortable with doing those things, I got a gym membership. I started going to the gym and weight training and doing the Stairmaster and doing HIIT exercises and doing like anything and everything. There was no rhyme or reason for what I was doing. It was just like more volume, more volume, more volume. And with the goal to put on muscle and get stronger. That was my goal. But I was eating like 600 calories a day, and it was probably like all protein. All protein and fiber. I can actually go back into MyFitnessPal and look back at my earlier days when I first started tracking in there. And the amount of fiber, I remember there were days where I was hitting like 80 to 100 grams of fiber a day. Wild. And you might think, oh my goodness, that's crazy. You know what's crazier? The little that I actually went to the bathroom. I had to actually have coffee, or not coffee. I just had regular enemas, like weekly enemas, which is where you like stick water up your ass to kind of get things moving. I had to have those done because I was not going to the bathroom, because I was consuming so much fiber and protein without anything else. And my body was under so much stress from the amount of exercise and the little amount of nutrition that I was giving my body. I was so depressed. I couldn't sleep. I hurt all the time. I felt like I was going to die half the time. And that was the tip top of my underfueling journey. Then I started to recover. I started to realize like, hey, I need to fuel my body. And I started to really teach myself and learn a lot from different people. Also like going through a nutrition degree, which really wasn't very helpful, but doing like certifications were much more helpful. And more just like experience, like learning my body, coaching other people, and learning what works for them. That's really what helped me the most. And then I hired a coach, and we started reverse dieting, increasing my calories. And I realized that, wow, I can, and I should, and I need to be eating much more to be able to build the muscle and strength that I want to build. And then when I shifted over to CrossFit back in 2020, 2021 is really when I started getting more into it. And then 2022, 2023 is when I decided I want to compete. And really, I would say at the end of 2023, going into 2024 is when I made that mindset shift where I was like, I will compete in this. And most recently, I've started documenting that journey on social media, where I used to not document that journey. I documented it somewhat, like I would post videos of my workouts, and I would always talk on my stories and all that stuff. I was never afraid to share that, but I never put out there that I have the goal to becoming a competitive athlete. I just didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to talk down on me. I didn't want people to be like, "Oh, that's stupid. She's never going to make it." But now I don't care. I literally do not care, because the reality is this is my journey, and if I want to do something, I'm going to do everything in my power to get it. And the only thing that's going to hold me back is this number one thing, which is underfueling. Right now, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten in my entire life, and I feel good eating it. I'm actually starving all the time and probably need to be fueling more. I haven't stepped on the scale in months, which used to literally wreck me. So while I'm still struggling with these eating disorder tendencies, and even while like over the last 2 weeks, we added in half a tablespoon of almond butter into my oats, and it took me so long and a couple of near panic attacks to do that, which is crazy when you say it because it's fucking 80 calories. And that's where I'm at. But the thing is, even though it scared me, and even though it's hard for me to do it, I'm still doing it. And that's what you have to understand if you're in this state where you're underfueled as an athlete. You will only hurt yourself more if you do not fuel enough. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And 2 years ago, I would have laughed in your face and said, no, I just recover well. I can handle a lot of volume. I can do these things. And I was even looking back on my Facebook memories, and I looked back 2 years ago, and that was when I was not fueling very well. And I thought I was fueling well, but I wasn't. I was doing so much additional volume outside of my training, just like running for no reason and thinking that I had to do that to burn more calories and be in that mindset. But then I looked back a year ago and I had the worst back injury that completely set me back so far. And now I'm dealing with this knee injury that's just nagging. And I realized that like I never dealt with injuries until my body eventually said enough. Like, you can't continue on like this. And that's when I had to make the shift to focus on the little things, to focus on mobility, to focus on recovery, to focus on my sleep, to really focus on not just eating, but eating enough as an athlete and fueling. And I do get a lot of questions on social media, people asking me like, oh, I feel like maybe I'm not eating enough as an athlete. If you feel like you're not eating enough as an athlete, you're probably not eating enough as an athlete. Protein is super important, but carbs are important because that's your fuel. Fats are important because that's how we manage hormones. That's how we reduce inflammation, and that's for joint health. Understand that it's okay to struggle with this, but you can't constantly think eating less. You have to think fueling my body to perform at its best, to be as strong as possible. And I promise you, even if you're in a fat loss phase, having this mindset to focus on fueling your body to perform at its best and get as strong as possible is going to probably equate to you seeing the results that you want. Most people don't eat enough to be able to put on proper muscle. And muscle is the way that we speed up our metabolism. Muscle is how we teach our body to burn more calories at rest. So the higher your metabolic rate is, the more calories you're burning at rest, the more you can eat and the more you can sustain your results. And the easier it becomes to sustain your results regardless of what your goal is. So understand that underfueling may be fine right now, but it will not be fine forever. Trust me, take it from somebody who thought that I'd be fine, and then it ended up just kicking me in the ass really hard. And I would go back in time and change it if I could, but I can't. So I'm teaching you and I'm learning from my mistakes. And that's number one. Number two is comparing myself to everybody else in my sport. So I constantly go on social media and I constantly compare my body. I constantly compare my strength. I constantly compare my performance, and it killed my confidence and it distracted me. That's the number one thing. Is as an athlete, you have to stay in your fucking lane. Now, I understand that when you're competing, yes, you need to be aware of the competition, but it's different from being aware of the competition and knowing their strengths, knowing their weaknesses, knowing kind of where they're at on the floor if you're in an event. But it's one thing to obsess over the competition to the point where it distracts you from what the hell you're doing. And that's what I was doing. I was so focused on what everybody else was doing, thinking that they're doing more than me, I'm not doing enough. But you can't compare because you don't know where that person's at in their journey. You have no idea how much work they've put in. You have no idea what kind of even a cycle that they're on. Are they on a strength cycle? Are they on a conditioning cycle because they need to increase their aerobic capacity? Are they really good at strength where I'm lacking in strength? So they're doing more conditioning, but I need to pull back and do more strength. But I'm comparing myself because they're doing more conditioning and burning more calories. That's dumb. Am I better than I was last week? Am I better than I was last month, last year? That's what matters. This is my journey. This is your journey. Now you got to focus on you. That's what I do right now. I focus on me. I stay in my lane and I trust the process and I trust my team to take me to where I want to go. And that took me a while to trust people. I had a lot of coaches before that I didn't fully trust. And I don't really think it had anything to do with that coach specifically. I just think it was the mindset that I was in. And right now I'm in a better mindset to be able to ask for help and take advice and trust people. But I went through a period of time where Eric is my coach right now, and he's been my coach for 3 years. We just recently celebrated our 3-year anniversary. And Cheryl is my nutrition coach. She's been my nutrition coach since January. So we're entering in our 7th or 8th month. I can't really remember if it was January or December. But I trust these two people more than I have trusted any other coach that I've worked with. And I think it's just taken me time to work with a lot of people to understand that, like, hey, if I listen to this person, I will get results. But I was always afraid. I was always afraid I wasn't doing enough. So if I had a coach who was giving me programming, then I would always add to my programming, whether it be running or whether it just be additional volume or additional sets or core work or anything. I would always add more because I thought that I needed to do more. Now, my coach Eric has taught me, one, that if I do anything outside of his workouts, I probably would die because, man, his workouts just, they're enough, you know? Even on the days where it's less volume, they are still enough because of one thing that he taught me. More isn't better. Better is better. So intensity and effort and intention with what you're doing is what matters, not volume. Volume is important, but if you're just doing a shit ton of volume, but there's no intensity or intention behind it, it's not going to help you. In fact, it's only going to hurt you. Same thing with Cheryl. I've never trusted anyone as much as I do with my nutrition. I used to lie about my tracking. I would track and play around with my numbers until I, quote unquote, hit my macros, but I didn't actually hit my macros. I just made it look like I hit my macros when I was actually under eating. Now, if Cheryl tells me to fucking eat it and I don't eat it, then I don't track it and I have to face the music. Or if Cheryl tells me to eat it and I eat it, I track it, I hit my numbers, and we're happy. Which goes into number 3. My number 3 mistake, not asking for help. I tried to do it all on my own, or I would hire a coach and then not do everything that they told me to do or do more than they told me to do. I would never do less, actually. That's one thing I would never do, except unless it was eat. I would eat less, but I would never do less volume. I'd always do more. But then I would get lost. I would get frustrated. I would get overwhelmed and I would be stuck. Now I have coaches. I have mentors. I have people who check in on me and I have people who I can reach out to who are always going to be honest with me. And I'll be honest right back to them because we trust and we respect each other. So don't be afraid to ask for help because not asking for help is only going to hold you back. And if you ask for help, take the advice or don't ask. Because I tried so long to just fight what my people were telling me. And it held me back. You know how much stronger I'd probably be if I didn't waste my fucking time just running for no fucking reason when I was working with another coach before Eric? Why was I doing more? Because I thought I could handle it, and I could at the time, but look at where I'm at now. Could I actually handle it? Because my hormones are shit. My knee hurts a lot, and the inflammation kind of won't go away. I had a year injury with my back. So did I actually handle the volume well? No, I would say I didn't. I would just say that I was masking it for a really long time, and my 25-year-old body can handle it. Now my 30-year-old body is paying for it. Learn from my mistakes. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. In fact, if somebody asks me a question, I appreciate that because they're going out there and they're trying versus somebody who's just trying to do it all on their own and keeps running into a brick wall over and over and over again. You know how much time you would save if you just asked for help and took that help? Ask for help from somebody you trust. Don't just ask some random person on the internet. Make sure you trust that person first. Number 4 is ignoring recovery and thinking that recovery or slowing down or resting made me weak. I still struggle with this one. Hands up. I struggle with this one hardcore when it comes to relaxing, right? Like I'll train all day, I'll work all day, I'll podcast, I'll have client calls, I'll do all these things. And then it's time to be like, hey, you can chill now. Like you can sit down on the couch. And I'm like, no, I need to stand at my desk and work on random shit. Why? Right? There's no rhyme or reason for it, but I am getting better with it. Like I do make sure I take a cold plunge every single day. I'm working on my sleep schedule. I do deloads. I never did deloads. In fact, I never knew what a deload week was until my coach Eric was like, we're doing a deload. And I was like, what the hell is that? Never done that before. I never walked unless it was with a weighted vest. Like I always would go on walks, but I'd have to throw on my weighted vest, even if it was like a 10-minute walk. It was crazy. And it wasn't like I was just doing it because I thought it would make me better. I thought I was being a fucking weak person if I didn't wear a weighted vest on a walk, which is crazy when I think about it. Like I used to, back when I was working with my previous coach, like I said, we were doing one-a-day sessions because at the time I wasn't like focused on being a competitive athlete. I was just like doing CrossFit because I like it. So we were doing one session a day and it was quite a bit of volume, but I was doing one session a day. And in the morning, I would always go on a run. And it would be like 3 to 4 miles generally. And I would run 3 to 4 miles. And whatever time was remaining in 45 minutes, because for some reason 45 minutes had to be the amount of time that I did, at least, I would throw on my weight vest and walk. So if I did a 4-mile run and I finished in like 36 minutes, then I would walk with a weighted vest for 9 minutes. Like what is the point? Right? So I was never just walking and using walking as like a therapeutic or restorative exercise or something to get my mind right or something to like promote blood flow. It was just like, how can I beat my body up more? I never stretched. I never even considered hiring a PT, which I hired last year, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done. I do PT mobility work daily, movement prep work, things specific for the things that I struggle with. And I really wish that I did this earlier in my career. I really do. I've been in fitness for over a decade, and I never paid attention to any of this shit until the last 2 years when I hurt my back. That's when it was like, oh, I should probably do this. And that was a year ago. So it's been a year of me actually really focusing on things. And what happened? I got hurt. I felt anxious all the time. I started to get burnt out. Lots of aches and pains, like always. Now I'm better with my mobility. I have a PT. Rest is a non-negotiable. I have a time that I shut down my laptop every night, boundaries that I set, and I'm focusing more on my sleep. And I earn my output through my recovery. And nutrition is a big part of this recovery piece because if you're underfueled but you're still doing mobility, it doesn't matter. You're underfueled. I think nutrition and sleep are the two biggest points. People ask me like, oh, how do you recover to be able to train this hard every day? I eat a lot of fucking food and I focus on my sleep and I hydrate a ton with electrolytes. Those are things that matter. Like mobility is very important. Stretching is very important. Working on those little things is very important. But if you sleep like shit, your nutrition is crap, none of that matters. Now, the fifth thing is avoiding the mental work. So if you're trying to be an athlete, you have to focus on more than just the physical work because the mental work is important. I think one of the biggest differentiators between somebody who is successful in a sport and somebody who is, we'll say, dominant in a sport is their mental work. An example of this would be Tia Claire Toomey. If you don't know who Tia Claire Toomey is, well, buckle up. Tia Toomey has won the CrossFit Games 7 years. Seven CrossFit titles. She won 6 years in a row, took a year off to have a child, and then came back the following year to win another as a mother. Wild stuff. She's also been to the Olympics for weightlifting. She's a high rocks world champion, or she went to the world champion. She didn't win the world champions, but she went. And she's going right now, in a week, will be competing to win her 8th CrossFit Games title. And to be honest, I truly believe, and I'm going to call it right here, if Tia Toomey wins this weekend, she will go for 9 and 10. I truly believe if she gets 8, she's going to go for 10. She just wants 10. I can feel that every single time I watch a video or an interview on her where they ask her, is this going to be the last year? And she hesitates. I think it really is up to, if she loses this year, I do believe it's her last year. If she wins again, I think she's going for 10 because double digits is impressive. Fuck, more than 2 isn't, 1 is impressive. But my point being is watch any sort of interview or video on Tia Claire Toomey. Yes, she works hard. She trains hard, but her mindset is bulletproof. She is relentless. So if you only focus on lifting heavier and moving faster, but you don't have any mental tools when life hits hard, you will fall. You will fall. So you have to focus on things like journaling, breathing, visualizing, and reflection as hard as you train. Number 6 is refusing to scale or refusing to modify. So let's actually talk about this because today I had to pivot and modify one of my pieces. So my knee, like I said, has been bothering me quite a bit. I think it was 2 months ago, I sprained my LCL in my right knee, very mild sprain, but my body does a terrible job of draining inflammation because of my autoimmune. So it's just been kind of cranky since, a lot of just like bursitis and tendonitis. And right now, over the last week, it kind of has been bothering me quite a bit. And I decided, I reached out to my coach yesterday and was like, hey, like my knee is bothering me quite a bit. So today is leg day, or it's more lower body focused. Although in CrossFit, like every day is leg day. But usually squats are on the menu. So this morning, instead of doing like heavy squats, we did very slow tempo squats, heel elevated squats. So they were at a lighter weight because of the tempo. It was a 5-second tempo. Wild. And then we did a lot of like knee health stuff at the end of the workout. And then in the afternoon for my Metcon, I had to switch out squat cleans for power cleans. And a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just suffered through the squat cleans and risked hurting myself more or risk putting myself in a more inflamed state. Today, I trained without my ego and I focused on being smart. And this is probably the most difficult thing to do as an athlete because all you want to do is keep going and push through the pain. But the best athletes in the world, they train around the pain, not through the pain. There is a difference. I'm not saying you stop training. I'm not saying that you stop moving, that you stop being intense with your stuff. I'm saying pivot and adapt, just like I did. Today, I was supposed to do 5 squat cleans in each round at 85 pounds. And I switched it to 5 power cleans at 95 pounds. So I upped the weight, switched it to power to keep the intensity the same. And I had a great training session. And you know what? My knee's talking to me right now, but I bet it would be talking to me way louder if I did that. So now I scale to stay in the game. Training through pain isn't tough. I used to think it was, but it's not tough. It's dumb. It's literally dumb. And this one thing has been one of the hardest things for me to overcome. And I do have days where I still struggle with this one a lot. In my mind, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you're like, it's fine, everything's fine, I'll be fine. But then later, after the training session, you're in agony, regretting everything. So for me, with this knee injury, I just continue to test the waters instead of trying to listen to my body and give it some space to heal. So today I made the decision to give it some space to heal. And I'm hoping that I can. Number 7 is measuring progress by PRs only. If you didn't hit a new number, whether it be a faster time or a heavier weight, you feel like you failed. I've been there 100%. There are many times in sessions where my coach will program work up to a heavy single for the day. And in my mind, if I don't hit a PR, then I fucking failed. But now I look at it differently where it's like, hey, I hit that weight and my form was way better, or it didn't feel as heavy, or I did it under fatigue. And that's a win. That's getting better. So don't just look at things as like, if I didn't hit a PR, then I failed. Think about things like, I didn't feel as shitty after I finished that workout. I had more energy. I was more consistent. I was more resilient. Now I track wins like showing up when it's hard, like recovering better, like staying in the game and being able to push myself a little bit harder with each set. That's what matters. And number 8, last but certainly not least, obsessing over the scale. One of the biggest mistakes I made, although I feel like I could say that and have said that for every single one of these because they are all really big things. So I used to let this number dictate my mood, my identity, my decisions, and I felt less than when it went up. Even when I was getting stronger, like I would be feeling really good in the gym. I would even be feeling really good in my body, but then I'd step on the scale and be really upset and feel like a big old fat blob, even though 10 minutes earlier I was so psyched by how good I felt. The scale is data. That's it. It's not a scoreboard of your worth. It doesn't track body fat. It tracks weight. So weight could be muscle, could be water, could be inflammation. So now I focus on tracking strength, tracking my energy, tracking how I'm looking, and how I show up. Right now, honestly, I don't even touch the scale. I needed a break from it, and I took that break because I noticed that it was starting to take over my life and take over my mind in a negative way. So having self-awareness with these things is really important. The scale doesn't determine your worth. The scale is a piece of data, and one of the most inaccurate pieces of data because of all of the reasons why it could fluctuate. So that was 8 mistakes that nearly broke me, but they've also made me a better athlete, a better coach. They've made me who I am today. So if you're in one of these right now, understand that you don't have to stay there. Learn from it, change it, then build something better. So go out today and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.